It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague in a danger zone in Rainford, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Another off-season. Here we go.
We are in where we shine, Neil. Off-season. This is where we earn the big bucks. This is indeed why we lift all these weights. We don't lift weights or earn bucks, ironically.
No.
But yes, the first of what will be many shows. Maybe not every week, but we will try and get our cavalcade of guests over the next few months to help us through this trying time. Talking draft, talking free agency, talking previews of the season, but talking mocks, talking it all, Neil. Talking it up.
No, I said talking bollocks.
Yeah, that as well, right? That's just us. We don't need them. So obviously. Yeah. With it being off-season, Weird World is back, and I've got two classics for you. One about nationalisation, and the other one about haircuts. Do you know what I mean? That's how I roll. Like, that's how lockdown life has got me. We're gonna have to talk about it, whether anyone likes it or not. Since the last time we spoke, Neil's favourite ginger quarterback no longer plays for his favourite team. And then Neil has done a fantastic couple of articles for Numberfire in relation to cut candidates and AFC and NFC and how they could affect your fancy teams. So we will look at that as well. Sound good, Neil?
Sounds like a blast. 2021 in bulk. Let's roll.
Let's do this. Let's start with Weird World. Neil, two fantastic Weird World stories for you. First one is about a sheep, which is gripping the nation, this one.
It's gripped me straight away.
Barak, the sheep, or it says Barak, actually, loses 35 kilograms of fleece in much-needed trip to barbers.
Gripping.
Lockdown has been tough for all our hairstyles, says the man with some kind of hairband in. That's me. Neil hasn't got any hair on his head. But one plucky sheep has given his first trim in what could have been many, many years. The wild and struggling animal was found in the forest in Australia with a fleece that was so overgrown he could barely see. When it was fully removed, his fleece weighed more than 35 kgs. Neil, I ask you now, when you were in probably year 9, because I would have been in year 8, we all went from pure mushroom heads to skinheads. Do you think you lost 35 kilograms given that kind of hairstyle?
I think mine was close. There is a picture of me which I hope I've destroyed, in which case that's all the copies destroyed, where I have the exact same hairstyle as my mum, circa 1993. This was like a beetle head, but with the curtains.
Still like curtains.
I'm certain that, having seen that picture, because I'd always had short hair, mother always wished me to the barbers, usually every 6 or 7 weeks. But one time I said, I want to grow my hair. It was when we started high school, so I let it grow. And as I say, went to a beetle, and then beetle with curtains. And I saw this picture, and I'm fairly certain that was the first time. Because this was back in the days where we had to get photos developed. People, this was the olden days. So that photo was developed. I saw it, and I went, right, barbers now. And the start of the first lockdown, I went, I think it was 12 weeks without a haircut. Now, never again. No, that's 5 or 6 is my limit. And it'll be one of those, it'll be a great money saver when I finally do go bald.
Yeah. You get your hair done with, shears, basically, so it's not really that difficult.
You'd be surprised.
I haven't had mine cut since the week before Christmas, I think. So I don't know how long that is. 10 weeks or whatever.
It shows.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, there is a hairband in my hair right now.
Yeah. Looks like you brush your hair with a toffee apple.
Yep, bingo, winner. But in the story of the haircuts circa 1993-94, there was a classic couple of school pictures of McGull High football team, year 7 and year 8, which is basically the same squad, but in year 7 everyone's got a mushroom head, and then in year 8 everyone's got a 2 all over. and we all look like crims, which, as Neil will highlight, 75% of that squad actually became.
Yeah. I believe it's called a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I believe it is, yeah.
If you look like you're in Borstal, eventually you will end up there.
It's ironic now, because I don't know, you've got girls, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, but like in Alfie's school, he's year 8. Well, I think he is. He hasn't been to school for 18 months now. Like, you weren't allowed a 1 on the back and sides. Like, they'd send you home. Like, what kind of weirdness is this?
Yeah, I did have a teacher tell me that my haircut was probably a bit too short, and they said the only reason we haven't sent you home is we know you're not a hooligan. So I'm an idiot, So I was told that I could get a 1, but I wasn't allowed to have it to the wood, which was my mother's phrase. Which is like, at the end of the day, I'll have my hair like I want. Thank you.
Yeah, this isn't China or Russia. You know what I mean? So, I'm fine. I'm not 100% sure how my skinhead will define how well or not well I am taught in school, but thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you can't teach me sociology properly, my hairstyle is not going to help me at all.
It's not, Neil. It's not. Let's move on. Let's move on to the nationalised Royal Mail. Let's be honest, post can sometimes take a while to be delivered, and where we are now in this world, nothing is close to home. But imagine receiving a postcard that was sent 77 years ago. Bill Caldwell, who was 18, and in his first week of training in the Royal Navy, when he sent a postcard to his uncle in Liverpool, Neil. The postcard is postmarked 1943, but has only just arrived at Bill's childhood home, where his uncle also lived. Talk me through how something takes 77 years to get to the address.
Generally, I think if you mark it as urgent, it's the same way that if you mark something as fragile, that is essentially giving the mail workers carte blanche to play football with it. So marking something as urgent, top secret, personal, they're going to read it and they're going to take ages about it. 77 years, it is bewildering because, without meaning to sound flippant, which, I do a wonderful job doing, it has to have been somewhere.
Exactly right.
This hasn't been to someone's house, they've said, it's not here, mate, and then gone somewhere else. That's been on a shelf somewhere. And then after 77 years, I mean, personally, if it had been 30 years, you'd think, oh, what a long time. But 77 years, that must have come back into circulation somewhere recently. And they've gone, should we post this? Oh, yeah. It's not been cancelled. The postage is still good. Okay, so the real question, as I say, is where the hell has it been? On whose shelf? In what box? Who retired after a stellar 65-year career with Royal Mail and then was clearing out his locker where he was like, shit, I was supposed to post this. I'll just drop it in the box on my way home. No one will notice.
What I love about that is that Neil works in a government post. I used to work in a government post, and although me and Neil can be efficient at times, we also can be inefficient. And this is the definition of inefficiency, and why that I once was quoted as saying we could sack half of these clowns and it wouldn't affect productivity in any way, shape or form in this department.
And you were the boss, so that obviously was in a performance review. It just always reminds me of there's a line, I think it's in The Naked Gun, where Frank Drebin is clearing out his desk, and it's oh my god, the missing evidence from the Clark case. He was innocent. You went to the chair 2 years ago, Frank. That's that type of thing with it.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But we love Weird World, and we're glad to have it back for the off season. If you have any stories that you would like to share, mostly hilarity, we love Florida ones. Don't be afraid to get them involved.
Never.
That was Australia and Liverpool we've done this week, so we avoided Florida, which is crazy. I'm sure it won't last for long. Please send them to @waxing_lyrical and we will get them on the show. Neil, let's move on with the NFL portion of today's discussions. Neil, it happened, and it's finally over. Carson Wentz is no longer a Philadelphia Eagle. although the $38 million that you're paying to not have him on the roster is going to bite. But anyway, I guess the question for me, before we get into the impacts and whatever, is, are you glad it's over?
Yeah, because it could have dragged. And if there's one thing you can say for being an Eagles fan, is it's never dull. There are, dizzying heights. There are gut-punching lows. There's never there are rarely moments of, vanilla ice cream boredom. And there was a danger that this 3-11-1 football team from a year ago was going to dominate the off-season headlines again because of their quarterback. That's now been removed. So now it's just a case of, okay, the only thing about the Eagles that is relevant is what they do in the draft. That's fine, I can live with that. But the millstone around their neck of will they, won't they, I can't be arsed with. I don't have the patience anymore. I say I'm 40 years old now. Do you want to play? Does money motivate you? Do you want to win a Super Bowl? I don't have time for this high school bullshit. So if you want to play, play. If you don't want to play, piss off. And, we'll get what we can for you. But all of this could have been avoided. I dare say there are faults on both sides, fine people on both sides. But here's this. If I'd got a team that close to a Super Bowl and my backup then won the Super Bowl, I'd be more inspired to want to stick around to win another one for that team to prove people wrong. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes. I mean, I think we could go pseudo-psychologist on this till the cows come home on the Wentz scenario. I've wrote an article for the Touchdown on the Philadelphia Eagles, actually on all the NFC's teams, although only two are out at present, Dallas and the Giants. You'll be pleased to know I got a yacht reference in and then set Jason Garrett on fire. But I digress. The Philadelphia one is a Howie Roseman inspired. How the F does this dude still have a job? Because
his real name's actually Lurie.
Yeah,
probably.
As I heard on a podcast this week, I'm not sure how someone like Howie, who can be the arsonist and the fireman, it's crazy. In the olden days, there was at least a 5-year moratorium on winning a Super Bowl, and the Eagles' Super Bowl seems a billion years ago. As we speak right now, and Neil, you probably know better than me, they are one of the 4 worst positioned teams in the whole entire league.
Yeah.
They have no cap situation. They have no talent. And both of those things aren't going to be fixed this year. Well, not going to be fixed quickly. They will be better this year, you would assume, but they're not going to get fixed quickly.
In terms of the rebuilding that was going on after the Chip Kelly era, winning the Super Bowl probably put the Eagles back.
Yeah. Because
I don't think they intended on challenging for a Super Bowl in 2017. It was just the fact that they then won one. And then instead of saying, no, stick to the plan, it then became, well, no, we can't possibly be a Super Bowl champion and not spend money. It was a case of, no, just do what got you to the fucking dance. So then it became, bad money was thrown after good. And there was a succession of contracts handed out and free agents that signed that didn't pan out. Malik Jackson, Javon Hargrave. You could argue that having signed Malik Jackson the year before, that maybe they didn't have to break the bank to get Javon Hargrave. I'm just saying. Trading to get Deshaun Jackson back for him to then play 8 games in 2 years, probably not the best use of funds. Not drafting DK Metcalf and drafting JJ Arcega-Whiteside because he wins contested catches. He has to win contested catches because he can't get open. Doubling down on that mistake by then taking Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson because he's just a slot guy. Very good. This is getting impressive. Drafting a quarterback at 53 after just giving your franchise quarterback a record-setting contract because you're a, quote, quarterback factory. You're solving a problem that didn't exist. Yeah, how Howie Roseman is the one to still be in the Philadelphia Eagles among, the head coach, the quarterback, the general manager, considering the shit he has put at the head coach's disposal, is odd. And I dare say it probably played a part in the Eagles coaching, because I would guess that people that the Eagles really wanted are quite clued in and may have just eased the mind of some people, thinking you don't want to go there because when it becomes a power struggle, and it will, Howie Roseman wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea that Eric Bieniemy, who wasn't even interviewed, well, why should the Eagles be any different, hey? Wasn't even interviewed. Yes, I think that there's probably a reason, that because Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator of Andy Reid. One of Andy Reid's previous offensive coordinators was Doug Peterson. Andy Reid and Doug Peterson both know that they have gone 0-2 in power struggles with Howie Roseman involved. Why would they recommend to Eric Bieniemy, look, if you get an interview with the Eagles, that's the gig you want? Because you're not. It's pointless. You don't want it. Now, no. I'm prepared to give Nick Sirianni all the rope he wants. We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know about Jalen Hurts because we don't know. What we saw last year in 3.5 games, there was some good, there was a lot bad. So the Eagles are in a position that they can go, and they're going to stick in 2021. I've resigned myself to it. 2-14 or 2-15 if they get the 17 games, that's fine. Anything and above that will be a bonus. If Jalen Hurts is good and they suck, we've probably got something. If Jalen Hurts sucks and they're terrible, then they'll be in position to look at a quarterback next year. Whether next year's quarterback class is as talented as this one, I don't know. Maybe it's something we can ask Mark Schofield next time we speak to him.
Correct.
But it's, as you say, this particular drama is going to drag, because as soon as Carson Wentz gets announced in in Indianapolis, someone will bring it up. And he'll come up with some kind of, shucks, probably just, a natural end between two parties kind of bullshit answer. The only thing I will say against Carson Wentz, and this is a warning to the Indianapolis Colts, most of the news reports that came out of Philadelphia is that Carson Wentz did not want to be coached hard.
Yeah.
He didn't want... Tom Brady famously came out and said to Byron Leftwich, push me. Carson Wentz doesn't want to be pushed. So when he's got his Frank Reich back, he's got Al Groh back, or Mike Groh, sorry, and his buddy Press Taylor is there. If they go 4-0 in Indianapolis, but then he has a 3-pick game and they lose 4-1, and they go to 4-1, in that film session the next week, and they're saying, Carson, you probably shouldn't do this. And he goes, no, I'll do what I want.
There's a few different ways to slice that, I guess, and I suppose we move on to the impact in Indianapolis, right? For Indianapolis, they're paying somewhere in the region of $25 million a year for Carson Wentz for the rest of it. I think it's 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. It's not extortionate amount of money in the grand scheme of things. If he's serviceable, right? If he's not serviceable, I think they can get out of it after year 2.
Yes.
And they only lose a second and a third draft pick. At the moment, they have no quarterback. They are picking, I think, about 23. Mm-hmm. So, in that sense, a 2 and a 3 for a quarterback who your coaching staff have utilised well in the past is a good thing. Are the Indianapolis Colts any better at the start of 2020, like all things being equal, start of 2021 than they were at 2020? I don't think they are. Like, is at the moment, based on what I know from Carson Wentz of the past 2 years, 3 years, they would bite your hand off for him to be as good as Phil Rivers was last year, right? Let's be honest. We laugh consistently, and you just named some of them and the reasons why, at the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver core. He isn't going to, the Atlanta Falcons here. He isn't getting Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. He isn't going to Seattle and getting DK Metcalf and their guys. That's not what's happening here. They are better than the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're not spectacular. okay, they have a running game in Jonathan Taylor, and he did well last year. But they have now got an issue at left tackle. There's an assumption that they move Quentin Nelson. I think that's a bad idea. You make yourself weaker at two different positions. So they got to draft or get a left tackle. So do I think the Colts are favourites to win the AFC South? Actually, I do. But do I think they're favourites to win the AFC South because they signed Carson Wentz? Well, actually, no, not really. I think they needed to sign a serviceable quarterback. I believe Carson Wentz can be one of them, and therefore they will win the AFC South.
Yeah, it was... Well, I say it's not the first domino to fall, because obviously that was Matthew Stafford going to the Rams. It was another domino to fall, so that now we still have... There's still teams who have a quarterback in their roster who you are thinking, is this guy going to be the week one starter? Obviously, Deshaun Watson with the Texans, who apparently he met David Culley today, and essentially the conversation went thus. Hi, Deshaun, really glad to make your acquaintance. Can't wait to get this going. Deshaun, I'm never playing for you, old man.
So just on that, Dan Graziano of ESPN has just said basically what Neil said. Deshaun Watson met with Texans head coach David Culley and informed him that he has no intention of suiting up for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, it's almost as if hiring a 65-year-old wide receiver coach who's never head coached anyone isn't the fix you thought it would be. So obviously there's him, there's Sam Darnold, Mitchell Trubisky's going to hit free agency. Who signs Ryan Fitzpatrick? Eagles, please. What happens? It depends on where wish casting, where Deshaun Watson lands. What happens to their team's quarterback? So does Mariota go on the move? Does Jimmy Garoppolo move? It's going to be interesting because this is going to be like the second year in a row that we've seen established veteran quarterbacks on the move. But also one thing that we have seen differently this year, which is even more bewildering considering how low the salary cap was dropped as we lead into the next topic. Teams are not interested in dead money. They do not care. If they want to get rid of a quarterback, they're going to get rid of him. And they'll deal with the dead money implications because it's almost like look, just rip it off now. This year it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But we'll be all right next year. It's as I said, I was speaking to Nat Coombs on Sunday. It's like burning your house down today because you've got new carpet coming next week.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams who are in tremendously bad salary cap situations. So if you're in a tremendously bad salary cap situation, what's the problem with making it even worse?
Yeah.
Especially when you assume, rightly or wrongly, that the salary cap situation will increase markedly next year. Now, right now, that seems quite naive. But anyway, they can live in that world and that's fine.
It's like if you had for your tea a pot noodle,
yeah,
and you washed it down with a Sunny Delight. Your meal's already shit. It's not going to get more shit with the Sunny Delight. It's already shit. So if
both of those things aren't food or drink, by the way, and anyone who suggests otherwise is an animal.
Yeah. So it's like the salary cap is bad. We know we need to gut the roster to fix it. Yeah. I'll just set fire to more money. We'll be all right.
If before we get onto the fancy impact of this trade, I just want to say, if you ever want half an hour's worth of fun, right, go on the over-the-cap calculator and pick the Philadelphia Eagles and try and construct a way of getting under the salary cap.
With a team that looks like it could actually be competitive.
Just with 53 men on a roster. Don't be competitive. Like you're saying, you're going to be 2-14, Neil. You don't need to be competitive. I'm saying I'm not sure it's feasibly possible unless you're, some kind of accountant genius.
Which how he is, apparently.
Well, apparently he's got to be something. Fancy impact, Neil. Is there a massive like Philadelphia right now for me is go nowhere near, and I mean that in standard leagues, in dynasty and whatever. I just don't want any part of them unless they take one of the wide receivers, which they'll pick the wrong one of because Howie's doing it. So I probably wouldn't pick him either. What does it do to the Colts?
Well, just going back to the Eagles, obviously, if Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback, we do have the rushing appeal, which we know is a cheat code in fantasy football. We also know that a running back tethered to a mobile quarterback can be good in fantasy as well. So that means Miles Sanders might actually be something of a post-hype sleeper. There's going to be no Zach Ertz. So does Dallas Goedert become, a bit more attractive? He did have 500 receiving yards last year, one of only 2 Eagles players to do so. These aren't players that I'm going to rush out and draft. But if Jalen Hurts fell to me, if I was, the last person to take a quarterback in my league, would I be disgusted? No, because he has that rushing floor. If, and we go into the Lamar Jackson school of if he can develop as a passer, maybe he could be serviceable. I don't know. When it comes to the Colts, it's tough to say because we don't know what's happening with their wide receivers. We don't know if T.Y. Hilton is going to re-sign. We don't know if they're going to try and upgrade at tight end because at the moment they've got Jack Doyle under contract. The rest are all free agents, I believe. So we have maybe Michael Pittman, who's already come out with a baller move and said, no, I'm the number 11 for the Indianapolis Colts. Carson, get bent. Jonathan Taylor is going to be the engine that drives this team. Whether that helps Carson Wentz, don't know. He's never had a lead running back before. So I think, if anything, the Colts players are where you're going to pick them. Where you're going to pick them anyway, especially the likes of Jonathan Taylor. It's just maybe now that Carson Wentz becomes a bit more attractive as a late-round quarterback option than he actually was if he'd stayed with the Eagles.
2 things on the Michael Pittman thing. Carson Wentz's response should have definitely been, I didn't want 11 anyway, you tit. And also, is there a worse move for a wide receiver than to piss off the guy who's supposed to throw you the ball?
Well, you could argue that. You could argue as well that you're, standing up to him, that you're therefore a personality to be reckoned with. But there is also the, I will bury you in this offense dweeb approach of, this guy, as you say, this is the guy who's giving you the work. If you don't want the shit work, just wear 10, mate.
But the thing is, right, is like, have you not read the Philadelphia Inquirer? Any podcast by John Barshard and the boys in Philadelphia? Carson doesn't like being stood up to. Carson doesn't like being shown up. So first move saying here's a middle finger to number 11 is probably not your smartest move. Neil, let's move on. You wrote a couple of fantastic articles for Numberfire around fantasy relevant cut candidates, easy for me to say. And we wanted to look at a few here on the show to give people an idea of, especially I guess from a dynasty point of view, if you've got some of these players who you need to think about. First person on the list, Neil, is Ian Thomas of the Panthers, who you told me to draft in multiple leagues last year, you prick, and I did.
Well, you weren't the only one. I say, to quote Matt Kelly, I eat at my own restaurant. I drafted Ian Thomas in a lot of leagues. I owned him in Dynasty, and he stunk. Unfortunately, athletic tight end, or was he just an athlete playing tight end? I don't know if maybe another quarterback change could unlock Ian Thomas, because he just didn't seem to have any chemistry with Teddy Bridgewater. But we're getting to the point now that we are running out of excuses, aren't we, Ian? I mean, and obviously I have a personal connection to this name, but Ian isn't one of those names that you really associate with American football. It's Ian Thomas. That literally sounds like one of my dad's mates. He's probably a decent snooker player. He probably drinks 2 pints a night and then goes home, plays snooker. Loves Top Gear. But whether he can be the tight end of note for your team, I don't know. I just think
I have a question on the Top Gear thing, Neil. Does he love Top Gear, or does he love Hammond? And the other May and that wanker whose name escapes me.
Clarkson.
So he now watches Amazon.
I think he loves cars.
Okay, so he likes Top Gear then.
He liked Top Gear when it was about cars, not about other words beginning with C.
So he actually liked Top Gear pre Clarkson, May, and Hammond.
Yes.
When they actually drove cars and told you what they thought of the cars.
Yeah, loved Fifth Gear with Quentin Wilson. This guy, he probably religiously rewatches episode after episode of Wheeler Dealers because he knows that Mike Brewer is the worst negotiator any side of Brexit.
Okay. Let's move on, Neil, to the New York Football Giants. One of our favourites, who was not a favourite in New York, was Golden Tate.
Yeah, he sucks. Unfortunately, the Giants' offense is abysmal. It's hard to watch. And therefore, when you have an inefficient quarterback like Daniel Jones, who you don't know what he wants to do, and you have a incredibly unimaginative offensive play caller in Jason Garrett, a slot wide receiver is not going to pay the bills. Golden Tate has got on, famously through most of his career on volume, because he loves yak. And unfortunately, if he's not getting the volume, the yak doesn't really matter for a lick of shit. So I just think the price that he is this year, he's just not worth it. And it just makes more sense to cut him loose and try and go younger at the wide receiver class for the Giants.
So Daniel Jones, so I wrote an, as I said, on the Giants. So he is inconsistent at best and is a turnover machine. We agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only the Jets scored less points on average than the Giants. Mm-hmm. And the Giants ranked 31st in penalty stalling drives and 29th in drop passes. Do you know what the New York Giants decided to do?
Run the ball?
Play it all back again and get everyone back. What the absolute balls are they playing at?
Well, this is what happens when you take running back second pick overall. You've got to pretty much, you put a scheme in place around that running back. He then gets injured. Okay, once he comes back, everything will be fine. No.
Yeah, let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, Neil, who you have possibly cutting one of the prettiest men in football, Jimmy G.
As much as I would shag him, that doesn't mean I would start him at quarterback because, I could list any number of analytics for you here, any advanced stats and metrics on number fire or player profile, but it all comes down to this. He's not actually very good. He got them to a Super Bowl. No, he was playing on a team that got to a Super Bowl on the back of a historically good defense. He doesn't play. He's had one season for the 49ers where he's played more than 6 games. The best ability is availability. Following that, it's durability. He hasn't got either.
You can save $23 million against the cap as well. If you're the San Francisco 49ers, are you just in a bunker right now trying to work out how you come up with enough collateral to get Deshaun Watson from the Texans?
I don't think since the end of the season and since the Deshaun Watson furor kicked off with the Texans, I don't think Kyle Shanahan has said his wife's name as often as he said Deshaun Watson, because his every waking moment must be dedicated to asking the question, how do I get him here? I run the most QB-friendly system and scheme in the NFL. How do I get one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL onto it? John, you're the one who once boasted about how you managed to fleece the Bears to move down a pick to get Solomon Thomas. You're that good, mate. Get me Deshaun Watson.
George Kittle, Nick Bosa, and a first-round draft pick. Let's go.
Yeah. I was listening to one of the Yahoo Fancy Forecasts. Matt Harmon was talking to Charles McDonald at Forvert, and it brought up the fact that what would Kyle Shanahan say if it cost him Nick Bosa to get Deshaun Watson? And I was listening thinking, the words, see ya, Nick.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I think the message, you can have him, but it'll cost you both. They wouldn't even finish the before Shanahan went, yep.
I love all 4 of the defensive linemen for the WFT who we're going to be coming on to momentarily. They would all be gone. That's how this works.
I've asked you off Mike. Okay, Chase Young, yeah, he's great. Would you rather have him or Justin Herbert right now?
Yeah, exactly right. This is
and it's not even close.
This is how the world works, right? This is how the world works. Onto the WFT. Obviously, Alex Smith, who came out this week and suggested that Washington didn't want him. Like this was news, and it's fantastic what Alex Smith did last year. But he had like 73 surgeries. It shouldn't be surprising that the team didn't really want him to play.
Yeah, I'd say it would have been better for all parts if Alex Smith had never played and they could have put him on the retired list. Obviously, that would have accelerated all the money onto the cap last year. And again, it would have been a band-aid they could have got rid of because they didn't need him because they had Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen. Obviously, things went south with Haskins because he's not actually very good. His attitude issue, presumably. Kyle Allen is Kyle Allen. Tyler Heineke, we didn't know was the second coming of Joe Montana. And I don't think he knows it. And Alex Smith came in and led the team to the playoffs. He wasn't great, but when he played, they won. The fact of the matter is that he has a $24 million cap charge in 2021, and as I wrote in the article, the 2021 Alex Smith is not worth $24 million. He's just not. Yeah. So you have this horrible situation that obviously Washington are bereft of playmakers other than Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, and the running back, Antonio Gibson. But if you haven't got a quarterback, it doesn't really matter. As you say, your elite hunter-killer group on defense, so what? Yeah. You took a defensive end. Oh, probably the best player in the draft. Couldn't care less. He's not a quarterback. Ergo, in real terms, he's not the best player in the draft. This is what someone said to me. I forget who it was, but someone said Kyle Pitts is probably the 5th best player in the draft. Then you're not looking at the draft properly because he's a tight end, and therefore he is not the 5th best player because it doesn't matter. At that stage, I'm not taking the tight end. It
depends where he's going, right? And I'm not sure he's a tight end. He's just a pass catcher who's on the line when he runs. But anyway, we get it.
I love tight ends, but taking one as the 5th best player in the NFL draft, no. Terribly sorry, no. If I'm picking 5th in the NFL draft, I'm not solving anything by taking a tight end.
You're tidying up your already playoff bound offense, right? Neil, let's move on to the AFC. And a name that surprised me on the Buffalo Bills is Smokey Brown.
Yeah, Smoke had some injury problems this year, so he didn't actually play a full slate of games. And if you actually look, Gabriel Davis came in and did pretty much what John Brown does and maybe a bit better. So as Gabe Davis is on his rookie deal, John Brown, I think, is expendable because ultimately, as it comes down again, if you can't play 16 games, I can't pay you.
Over to the Browns, David Njoku. That's just never worked.
No. Part of the stellar 2017 tight end draft class where 3 tight ends got took in the first round. All of them have turned out wonderfully well. This was the same draft where someone took George Kittle in the 5th round. David Njoku is ridiculously talented. He's ridiculously athletic. Unfortunately, he played less than 30% of the Cleveland Browns offensive snaps. So it's not worth paying $6 million a year for. I did say in that article I thought that maybe they would cut Odell Beckham. Unfortunately for them, his contract becomes fully guaranteed for 2021 on the 3rd day of the league year, and he's not going to pass a physical by then. So unless they trade him, he's staying on the roster.
The one with the largest number, Neil, is Mike Williams, Los Angeles Chargers.
His
guy is $16 million on cap savings.
The thing with Mike Williams is that's his 5th year option money.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to cut Mike Williams. I just don't think they're going to pay him $16 million because that would be the 9th biggest cap charge for a wide receiver in 2021 when they're already paying the 8th biggest cap charge for a wide receiver in Keenan Allen. So I would expect they're not going to cut him, but they are going to come to an extension that will drastically lower that money. But literally, I couldn't think of anyone else for the Chargers because most of their skill players are all rookies.
Moving on, Neil, the New England Patriots could be seeing the end of Julian Edelman.
As I said in the article, the Patriots historically have been, let's do this a year early rather than a year late. Well, if they're going to do that, then now's the time to cut Julian Edelman. Because while he wasn't great last year, the whole offense wasn't great. This we know. He didn't get open very well, and he dropped the ball, which is a problem. It wouldn't be a huge saving in terms, the Patriots are comparatively flush with cap space, but it's a question of, well, if you're going to keep Edelman, why?
Yeah. Final one, Neil, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but the team wanted to, is the Pittsburgh Steelers and obviously Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, he's shit. I'm terribly sorry. He was terrible. in 2020. And the idea that I think it was the beat writer for The Athletic who said that the Steelers are messing him round and he deserves better. Sorry. This man who has been an exemplary citizen off field, has he? He deserves better. This man who toyed with retirement 3 years running deserves better. Does he? Why? Tell me why.
This is the issue, right? Is that, like, you know, he hasn't been good, and the thought that someone's even considering cutting him when there'd be dead money of $22 million is unbelievable. But let's be honest, right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to be good this year. So why have Ben Roethlisberger as your quarterback when you're not going to be very good?
The idea that, as we know, if the Steelers have a quality, it is that they are ridiculously loyal. I mean, they've had 3 head coaches in my lifetime. Sorry, they've had 2 head coaches in my lifetime. No, 3. Yeah, Chuck Noll, the Chin, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. They don't like they don't like forcing people out unless they're Antonio Brown, which he needed forcing out, obviously. But Ben Roethlisberger, yes, I know he owns every major passing record in franchise history. That's great. And I know he has been, for someone that body type to take the pounding he's taken, because he has taken a pounding because he holds onto the ball too long. He has taken and he has taken them to 3 Super Bowls, 2 of which they won. That's great. Last one was in 2010. I don't recall. Have they been to the championship game since then? I don't think so.
Maybe once.
And as I say, I'll just drop ranks for it. He's an arsehole.
Yeah, but I mean, that's.
I know there are Pittsburgh Steelers fans. I know that are looking forward to the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era because they don't want to root for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, but that's that is understandable, right? But even if you're not interested by that, he's not very talented anymore. So the reason you would get rid of him is not because he's a dick, which he is. It's because he's not very good at football anymore. Yeah,
as I say, the first 9 weeks of the season, or first 9 games, he was averaging 6.7 yards per attempt. That's pretty pedestrian. But then after that, he was averaging 5.4, which is pathetic. Now, they couldn't run the ball, I know that. The offensive line broke down a bit. And, but this is a team that has shown if there's one thing they can do in their sleep, it's draft wide receivers. So you've got this talented trio of wide receivers. And Ben Roethlisberger, as we know, loves to go deep with the ball. I don't know why he seems to have earned that special distinction now. Like Rule Fox, I only ever say both names. I don't say Fox. I always call Ben Roethlisberger instead of Ben or Roethlisberger. Don't know why, but I move on. Just feed these wide receivers. You can't run the ball. Don't bother. But they kept trying. And it was like, this is madness. So, as we know, if he comes back, which he probably will, I mean, he didn't exactly help his agent's case by coming out saying, I will play for free. His agent, Ben, no, you won't. So that is it. Hey, Ben, I'll talk next time. Yeah, you just get on with it. The dead money hit would be large, but they're a team that's already in the shit salary cap-wise. And as I say, teams now are saying, look, the dead money, we don't want him here. We'll just get shot. Now, I'm not saying they will. It's unlikely because they're the Pittsburgh Steelers and they don't do things like this because it would be too controversial. But if they had had any sense, they've got to think about it because they have nothing at quarterback behind him. And it's not even as if it's a case of he's that good. We don't need to worry about the backup. No, he's terrible.
Exactly right. Exactly. That's it, Neil. And Neil's already nailed it, by the way. We won't bring up Adam Humphries has been cut while we've been making this call, and Neil highlighted him in his article. So, 1 in the win box for Neil.
His is a worry because, as I say in the article, he suffered a concussion, came back a week later, then didn't play again, and was still being monitored 3 months after the fact. That then becomes a look, Adam, we're not going to play you.
Yeah,
this is a health issue now. We can release you without paying you. We strongly advise you probably start to borrow a Chuck Nollism. Get on with your life's work.
Correct. Neil, that's it for this week's show. Before we come back next week, where can people catch you?
Catch me on the number 5. I say where I have those 2 articles, one for the AFC, one for the NFC. I have a piece coming out for Player Profiler. It's looking at free agents, looking at some advanced stats and metrics for the top free agents in this upcoming class. And I am still working through my rookie reviews for RotoViz. This week I did Justin Jefferson, whose first year's comps are very encouraging, but his current ADP is a little bit rich for my blood. I've still got Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Reagor, and Henry Ruggs to do among the wide receivers, and then I have Cole Kmet and Adam Troutman among tight ends. Good fun series. I enjoy doing it every year. And follow me on the Twitter at ndutton13.
I am at Mainty7. I have wrote 2 articles for the touchdown.co.uk. I am on the NFC East beat this year, so I have done an off-season preview for the Cowboys and the Giants. I've written the Eagles one, and that will be out the start of next week. If you don't go on to touchdown.co.uk, I recommend you do. They are doing some wonderful stuff on the draft, including some really good interviews with players who are coming up in this year's draft from some of the major colleges in America. Me and Neil don't like talking to players because we usually struggle to get stuff out of them, but Ollie Hodgkinson, who's done most of these interviews, got some fantastic stuff out, some really interesting draft picks. So I would highly recommend, if you're unsure about the draft, you're unsure what to do, and you want an English slant on it, head to the touchdown.co.uk. And combined, me and Neil are at waxing_lyrical. It's the start of the off season. We're going to get into the draft as soon as possible. Let's do this. These top guys are out.